Random House Audio presents So Brave, Young, and Handsome by Leif Enger. Read for you by Dan Woren. For Robin, Ty, and John, the brightest colors I ever saw. 1,000 a day. 1. Not to disappoint you, but my troubles are nothing. Not for an author, at least. Common blots aside, I have none of the usual big artillery. I am not penniless, brilliant, or an orphan. Have never been to war, suffered starvation, or lashed myself to a mast. My health is adequate, my wife steadfast, my son decent and promising. I am not surrounded by people who don't understand me. In fact, most understand me straight away, for I am, and always was, an amiable fellow and reliably polite. You, a curious stranger, could walk in this moment. I would offer you coffee and set you at ease. Would we talk pleasantly? Indeed we would. Though you'd soon be bored. Here on page 1, I don't even live in interesting surroundings, such as in a hospital for the insane, or on a tramp steamer, or in Madrid. Later in the proceedings, I do promise a tense chase or two and the tang of gunpowder. But here at the outset, it's flat old Minnesota, and I am sitting on the porch of my comfortable farmhouse, composing the flaccid middle of my 7th novel in 5 years. 7 novels, you exclaim. Quite right. But then I didn't finish any of them. I'm grateful for that, and you should be too. Number 7 featured a handsome but increasingly bilious ranch hand named Dan Roscoe. A right enough pard to begin with, he became more arrogant page by page. No laconic wit for Dan. It was himself I was writing about, with many low sighs, the morning I first saw Glendon Hale rowing upstream, through the ropey mists of the Cannon River. What a cool spring morning that was. Birdsong, dew on the blossoms. I yearned to be on the river myself. But Dan Roscoe had rustlers to catch and a girl to win. Neither seemed likely. How often I sighed in those days. I needed a revelation, but you know how it is. I would have settled for a nice surprise. Hearing the groan of oarlocks, I peered downriver. A white-headed fellow was rowing up out of the haze. He rowed standing, facing forward, a tottery business. Twice as I watched, one of his narrow sweeps missed the water completely, and he lurched like old Quixote, hooting to himself. The truth is, he appeared a bit elevated, early though it was. As I say, he was white-haired with a white mustache, and he wore white shirt sleeves, and his boat, too, was white above the waterline, so that he had a spectral or angelic quality, only somewhat reduced by his tipsy aspect. Forth he came through the parting mists. To this day, I don't know what took hold of me as he approached. I stood from my work and called hello. "Hello back," said he, not pausing in his strokes. "Pretty vessel," I called. "Pretty river," he said, a simple reply that made me ache to be afloat. But he wasn't slowing, as you might expect a polite person to do. And I stepped off the porch and jogged down to the stubby dock my son had built for fishing. "Can you stop a minute? There's coffee," I said, sounding pushy, I suspect, though I am no extrovert. Ask Susanna. "Maybe," he said, yet he was already well past me, and in fact the haze was closing round him again. I had a last glimpse of his boat, its graceful sheer and back-swept transom. Then it disappeared, though I could hear in the fog the dip of the old man's oars, his squealing oarlocks, and what might have been a laugh of delight, as though he'd vanished by some mystic capacity that tickled him every time. I went heavily back to the porch. My boy Redstart was there grinning. He was 11, Redstart, catching up with his papa in all kinds of ways. "Who was that man?" he inquired. "I don't know." "Was he drunk, do you think?" "Anything's possible." "He rose standing up," said Redstart. "I never saw that before. Did you talk to him?" No, I didn't. I couldn't look at the boy for a moment or two. I was embarrassed at how much I'd wanted to visit with the man in the boat, and how unaccountably sorry I was that he'd just rowed away. I sat in my chair and lifted pages into my lap. Dan Roscoe was waiting for me in those pages. Boy, he was morose. Who could face it? "I can still hear him," Redstart said. "Out in the mist. Can you hear him rowing, Papa?" I looked at my son, the lover of mysteries. You could never guess what Redstart might say, for his mind was made of stories. He'd gathered all manner of splendid facts about gunpowder and deserts of the world, and the anchoring of lighthouses against the furious sea. He knew which members of the James gang had once ridden into our town to knock over a bank, and been shot to moist rags for their trouble. And about me, he knew some things not even his mother knew, such as the exact number of novels I had abandoned on that porch. He whispered, "How many words today, Papa?" I made a quick and not altogether honest guess. 200 or so. "It's early still. That's pretty good," he replied, then sat and shut his eyes and leaned a while. I knew he should go take the horses to pasture or mulch the tomatoes, but I didn't want to lose his company. I picked up my pen and wrote. As Dan Roscoe branded each bawling calf with the Moon Ranch insignia, he recalled how Bell had clung to the arm of his hated rival. A moribund sentence that announced the death of my 7th novel. It didn't surprise me. I had the grim yet satisfactory thought that it wouldn't surprise Dan Roscoe either. Well, let him moan. I was sick of Dan and his myriad problems. "Red," said I, "here's an idea. Why don't you go in the house and lay hands on a few of your mother's orange rolls? Let's climb in the boat and head upstream." Said Redstart. He dawdled to his feet. He said, "Well," a couple of times. "Well, nothing," I said. "We don't even need the rolls. Let's catch up with that old man. I want to talk to him." Redstart went to the door. Poor reluctant boy. Long my joyous accomplice in distraction, he had lately been run to ground by his efficient and lovely and desperate mother. He didn't want to shame me, but what choice did I give him? "I guess we better not, Papa. You got to get your work done. Remember what Mama said." 2. What Susanna said was approximately, "If you don't soon finish that book of yours, we'll have to start selling the furniture." Lest you read in her words a tone of panic, let me assure you there was none. She was only letting me know where things stood. The end of money didn't mean the end of much, the end of our marriage, say, or even of Susanna's obstinate confidence in me. At worst, it meant the end of pretense, the end of my little run at distinction. To say it truly, the end of pride. I was the one who panicked. Here's how I came to this sorry pass. In the fall of 1910, I published a short novel called Martin Bly, which became so popular I quit being a postman and started calling myself an author. Who knows how these things happen? The book was just an adventure tale, nothing ambitious. I only wrote it for entertainment and to gratify a sort of wistful ache. Martin Bly was a postman, too, though as a Pony Express writer, he had a better shot at glory and peril than I in my tinctured cell at the Northfield P.O. It was a story to make a boy lean forward. It had Indians and great ships and the buried gold of Coronado, and 2 separate duels, including one with sabers. I also added a black-haired señorita, because my own Susanna loves a romance. Yet Bly was reviewed in a Chicago newspaper as disturbingly real. No doubt because some of the Indians adorned their pintos with bloody blonde scalps. That the haggard and venerated Buffalo Bill Cody read my story and praised it in newspaper interviews did not hurt the book at all, though it hardly explains why the first printing of 3,000 copies disappeared in 2 weeks. My publisher, Hackle & Banks, New York, was startled enough to wire me congratulations and print another 4,000, which sped from the warehouse in exactly 12 days. At this, I received a second telegram. "Bly, our fastest seller. Thank you, Grace." I was ignorant at the time that Grace was Grace Hackle, the generous and canny widow of Dixon Hackle, who had founded the publishing firm 20 years before. Then letters began to arrive. I was still employed at the P.O. and was startled in the sorting room when envelopes bearing my name began crossing the desk. I rarely received mail. When I did, it was apt to be from my mother, whose letters were straightforward offerings of gained wisdom. These, on the other hand,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?